All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get this meeting to order. If you can hear me, gavel them. Second time I used that. There you go.
It's kind of fun.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order. The regular meeting with the City Hall of the Board of Aldermen meeting, June 1st, 2023. And if you would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Can we make sure that all the mics are on? I noticed this side was off,
Yes.
but your guys' is not on.
Everybody's mics on, red. All right,
Oh, thanks. I just noticed these ones were all off.
thank you.
Alderman Rucker,
Here.
Alderman Hoffman,
Here.
Alderman Ross,
Here.
Alderman Morose. Here. Alderman Osteen, Alderman Schuman, Mayor Harmonson.
Here. And for the record, Alderman Schuman let us know she could not be here previously.
She's on vacation.
Yeah, she's on vacation, and we did get a text from Alderman Osteen that he had an emergency, so he could not attend tonight. So thoughts and prayers with them. All right. With that being said, we're going to move on to citizens communication. This is a time set aside on the agenda for citizens and visitors to address the mayor and board on any topic that is not a public hearing. For those here in person, speakers will be restricted to 3 minutes unless otherwise permitted. Minutes may not be donated or transferred from one speaker to another. Visitors attending via online will be in listen-only mode. Any questions or comments for the mayor and board may be sent to the city clerk at tberreth@osagebeach.org no later than 10 a.m. on the board meeting day, the first and third Thursday of each month. Submitted questions and comments may be read during the citizens communication section of the agenda. The Board of Aldermen will not take any action on any item not listed on the agenda, nor will it respond to questions, although staff may be directed to respond at a later date. The Mayor and the Board of Aldermen welcome and value input and feedback from the public. Is there anybody here in person who would like to address the board? Yes, sir. If you would please sign in, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Bill Morris. I'm chairman of the Veterans Committee, Lake of the Ozarks Elks Lodge. Our committee's been working with Mike Welty for the last 17 months on bidding a Veterans Memorial out in front of City Hall here. We've had a lot of discussions and everything. We've had Dave Van Leer in about 6 dozen meetings. I think you sat in on our last meeting and all. And we finally, I think, got the attorney in and got everything, got our ducks all in a row. So Elks would be proud to partner with the city to make this a reality. This would be a lasting tribute to all the young men and women who have served our country so greatly. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board tonight? All right, seeing none, has the board had a chance to review the minutes and the bills list? And Alderman Morose, are the liquor licenses all in order?
Everything's in order, sir.
All right, does anybody have any questions and comments? If not, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion agenda is approved. All right. Before we begin, and I was talking to our city attorney today, being that the public interest at Lakeport is as it is, if I don't have any problem from the board, we would like to change the agenda up a little bit. Before we move on to unfinished business, if we could address new business D, which is the redevelopment agreement. new business J, which is a Chapter 100, followed by old business E, which is a redevelopment plan. Those are the three things that have to do with this project. And while people are still here and the importance of this, if I don't have if I have a consent to the board, that's what I'd like to do. Do I have any
I
objections?
have no concerns.
None.
Objections? Alderman Rucker?
Question.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to do D,
New business?
then J,
New business
and then
D?
back to E.
Correct. New business
Okay,
D,
that's
new
fine.
business J?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Very good. Everybody have new business D in front of them?
Getting there.
All right. This is new business D. It's Bill 23-47. It's an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, approving a development agreement and a cooperation and transportation project agreement in connection with the Lakeport Village Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan. This is the first reading. City Attorney Cole Bradbury, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Board of Aldermen. This is the redevelopment agreement between the city and the developer of the Lakeport Oasis project. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to our special counsel for economic development, Mark Spikerman, to go through some of this. But I just wanted to commend all of you who've helped with this, including the mayor, members of the board, Gina. This has been a document that we have negotiated back and forth with Developers Council for the last 60 days or so. A lot of give and take has been involved. And I think that we have, as your attorney, I can advise you that this is a good deal for the city, that this fairly protects the city's interests as we go forward, and also allows the developer the flexibility needed to accomplish this project on time and successfully. As just a brief reminder, there are four principal, what Mark Spikerman called the four horsemen of the TIF. They are the TIF plan. That's what was referred to us by the TIF Commission. That is the big picture vision document. And that's going to be the old business item that we're going to be discussing last tonight. There is the CID, which you passed first reading last time and is not on tonight. That is an overlay taxing district for a 1% sales tax to help with the cost of the development. There's the Chapter 100 bonds, which is a sales tax exemption on construction materials to assist the developer in constructing the project. And last is this ordinance, which is the redevelopment agreement, where the plan is the big picture vision, the overall concept. The redevelopment agreement is the schematics. It is the nuts and bolts. It goes through everything from maintenance standards to clawbacks and everything in between. With that, I'll hand it over to Mark Spikerman, who can explain the agreement in a little more detail, and hopefully answer your questions.
Thank you, Cole and Mayor and Board of Aldermen. Once again, my name is Mark Spikerman. I'm an attorney with Gilmore and Bell. I'm special counsel to the city on economic development matters. Do we have the clicker for the PowerPoint? Oh, thanks. Got it. As you might imagine, you saw your packets. They were pretty thick, lots of documents. I'm going to try to sum them up and hit the high points here. As Cole mentioned, the redevelopment agreement's the nuts and bolts. This is where we actually implement the redevelopment plan, the terms and conditions upon which the developer will qualify for TIF assistance. So those terms and conditions include, he's got to build all the components of the redevelopment project. That means the hotel, the amusement uses, the parking garage, the water park, and the marina. If he does that in accordance with the redevelopment plan and the redevelopment agreement, there's maximum TIF, CID, TDD, and Super TIF funding. It's $78.4 million total, and you can see on the slide how it's broken down. There are asterisks on the local TIF and the total. If he does not reach an agreement with the fire district, as you may remember from prior discussions, the fire district does have a special statute that allows them to opt out of TIF. If he does not, the developer doesn't reach an agreement with the fire district, the asterisk numbers go down by 1.8 million, which is the value of the fire district's sales tax that would go into the TIF. Other sort of major points in the redevelopment agreement: acquire the timeshare property by the end of the year. That's by private negotiation. The dates for opening the amusement uses and completing everything, 2025, 2026, those are outside dates. As you may recall, the developer has publicly mentioned earlier dates that it's his target, but these are the sort of outside dates. We also have special development conditions in the redevelopment agreement. A few of them that might be of interest, at least 10 rides that are new to the Lake of the Ozarks region, trying not to cannibalize on anything that's here today already. The hotel that's part of the redevelopment agreement has to be maintained as a Marriott or there's the STR global ratings, which says a Marriott is a quote upper upscale hotel. So it needs to stay within those standards. Finally, that it also has to be open year-round, although just as a caveat, year-round does not mean open every day, just a certain number of days when they're doing business. The other big negotiating item here is the developer intends to use a portion of the TIF assistance through the issuance of bonds to fund the parking garage and some initial infrastructure associated with the amusement uses. They're working with the Missouri Development Finance Board, which is an instrumentality of the state of Missouri. It's a governmental entity to issue those bonds. The city would still be involved somewhat. They've got to enter into agreements related to getting the TIF money over there and the bonds being issued. But if that all moves forward, the redevelopment agreement provides that up to $55 million of bond proceeds would be available to fund the parking garage and the infrastructure. And you know that 55 is less than 78. So the difference is between 78 and 55, that additional 23. Developer doesn't qualify for that until they essentially finish everything. The other conditions for issuing these bonds are they have to have all their private financing in place. It means equity lined up, the construction loans all ready to go at the same time. They need to have construction contracts in place. Most of the project will have to be done through a guaranteed maximum price contract, so it's not like we'll finish half of it and learn that we don't have enough money. They also have to have building permits for the garage. The garage has got to be ready to go. And then zoning and site permits for the hotel, which is a little bit longer lead time on construction. And then finally, there is also, in the audience tonight is financial advisor to the city, Jeff White. Jeff and the city, working collaboratively, have to come to the conclusion that it's appropriate market conditions for bonds to be issued. If there's something crazy happening in the market that would not make it prudent, we'd be able to hit the pause button at that point to just assure that the city's fiduciary responsibilities are met. A few other just sort of public policy aspects of the redevelopment agreement. There is a clawback. If the developer delivers the project under budget, there's going to be some savings. It means the TIF's going to be reduced. You're going to share in those savings. There's also what we refer to as a hold harmless payment. This probably will not be applicable, but there's a scenario where, for instance, there's structures on the property today. Those structures have taxable assessed value. If those structures are demolished and the property is reassessed prior to new structures being built, there's a theoretical instance where the assessed value could go down a little bit before it goes way back up. And so this hold harmless payment basically imposes a contractual payment to make sure that if the taxes go down, they're going to make a contractual payment to keep the overall taxing districts at that same level. So nobody has to take a temporary one-year hit. And then we have just the standard assignment, indemnification, insurance, force majeure type provisions you see in any of the city's prior redevelopment agreements. This project also involves a TDD, as I mentioned, and the CID. When dealing with the TDD, you have to have a transportation project agreement. So one of the exhibits to the redevelopment agreement is a cooperation and transportation project agreement. Complies with the state law provisions. It's very similar actually to the one that was done for Beach Drive, CID, and TDD. The differences here is that the transportation project is the parking garage, as well as those sidewalks on Jeffries. It also provides the city will control the CID and TDD boards. They'll have a majority of appointees. And then the CID and TDD will impose sales taxes and special assessments, and those revenues will go to assist the TIF revenues in paying off the bonds. I've just summarized about 50 pages in 2 slides, so I'm happy to pause for questions.
If comments or questions from the board?
I wish you'd done that before,
Do you have comments or questions? Alderman Hoffman.
I have 2 questions. One, keeping it year-round, open year-round, how many days?
Yes,
Like
we
just
have-
Saturday doesn't seem enough to me. Like, can we guarantee it at Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, at least, during the winter months, or how's that structured?
So the water park, for instance, has to be open at least 250 days each calendar year. I mean, we can go back and
8 months.
specifically reference weekends, but I think the market will probably take care of that, because I imagine a Friday and Saturday and Sunday and in March, for instance, is just going to be economically better for the developer to keep open than a Tuesday and Wednesday.
Right. I just don't want to get into a scenario where it's 250 days a year, and then all of a sudden we leave out November, December, January. And there's 90 of the 111, 115 days. That's a little concern of mine. If we've been pushing family stuff year round, I just would not like to see it end up only open on Saturdays.
That's a good point. We can go back to the developer and ask that at least so many days per month be.
Okay.
I'm seeing the developer nod in the back, so.
I guess that's good.
Yeah.
Do you have another question, sir?
I do. My second question is the parking lot, and Cole has briefed me on this, but I just like a little clarification. We're not going to own it. We don't want to own it because there's a lot of liability to them, correct?
Right. You don't want to be responsible for the ongoing maintenance and operation of the
But
garage.
is there a revenue stream there for charging for parking? To me, $5 to park your vehicle, it seems really cheap, and that there's a lot of revenue to be gained there. And I'm just wondering if that is going to happen, where's that money going?
Well, right now, other than for hotel guests, my understanding is parking is going to be maintained for free. Even at $5 a day, that probably doesn't cover operation, maintenance, and depreciation of a nearly 1,000 space garage.
No, my concern is that,
Yeah.
or my question, I guess, is
Whether
that.
it would go and pay off the
No,
TIF bond.
so right now, you're saying it's probably not, we're probably not going to charge, and we're not going to own it, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But then all of a sudden, there's a booth and we're charging $5. Where does that money go if that decision is made?
Well, it's a good question. To the extent it becomes something that's generating income, it is going to affect the assessed value of the property and drive the assessed value of the property up, thereby creating additional TIF revenues through real property taxes. The actual dollars, though, from operating it, those are developer revenues, essentially.
I'm just kind of wondering, like $5, where if we just use those numbers, I kind of did some quick math the
Yeah.
other day, you're talking about $500,000 a year, that you could make in parking. Is that going to go, some of it to the school, some to the fire, is it all go to pay the TIF down faster, or, not to be rude, does it just go to the developer's pocket and their bottom line? I would just like to know if there's going to be charged, where is that money going to get distributed to?
Right now, and I'll try to answer this directly, right now there is not a method in the documents that directs any parking revenues directly to the TIF bonds. It would be developer revenues that they would use, potentially for profit, but also for maintaining and operating the garage.
Okay. I mean, I think we should take that into consideration and maybe look into it a little further, would be my suggestion, but thank you for answering it.
Yep.
So does,
Alderman Rucker.
so does the agreement not address the parking garage free or to charge? Is the agreement silent on that subject?
The
Is that-
agreement is silent on whether paid parking or free parking.
Okay. Okay.
Alderman Ross.
So just to chime in on that one, I would recommend that we make some type of an amendment to it, that during the life of the TIF, at least, that would not be allowed, or what would happen to those. I think that's a great question. Okay, that there's a little more clarity around that. And I see Cole furiously looking through there. I'm beginning to think that.
I thought we had it covered in
Okay.
something, so I'm.
So
I
if you
could be-
don't,
I'm
that's
not-
fine.
But Mark's not saying,
That's why we go through this process, is
Yep.
because a lot of people.
It was discussed, but I don't think it's in there.
Yeah.
I will double check though, and
I'm searching now.
Okay. And then the other thing that I had, on page 333, and Cole and I talked this morning, Cole, I don't know if you have an update, but the top paragraph on page 333 is section D. It's the last of Article 1. It talks about the construction of a parking garage, the amusement uses of marina space sufficient to serve approximately 200 boats, the hotel, and approximately blank square foot indoor, or, this is the one question I have, is why it's or, retractable roof water park. I mean, go ahead, what can you tell me about that?
I discussed that with Patrick after you and I spoke, and he said the plan is retractable roof. It's not an or. I'm getting nods from both
So
of
can
them.
we just?
We could revise that.
Okay,
For
great.
second reading.
All right, perfect, that's all I have, thanks.
any other questions regarding the redevelopment agreement?
Alderman Rose, yes.
The parking garage, they're saying 1,000 parking spaces, right? And then the Marriott Hotel, I understand the parking will be underground or below the units.
It'll be 1,000 spaces between the garage and the underground parking of the hotel. That's correct, right?
Say that again?
Okay.
It's about 1,200.
1,200 total between the underground parking by the hotel and the separate vertical parking garage.
Okay, but there will be no other parking all around the recreational areas, just the garage or Marriott, correct?
The site plan has some surface parking.
I'm sorry?
Some service.
There is some surface parking over by the restaurants.
Come in and things
All
like
right,
Well,
hey,
yeah.
let's do one at a time, please. Yes. Mr. Tegedoff, would you like to come up and address? Please. If you don't mind, microphone, just so for people at home. Yes.
To
thank you.
address the question on the table now, so based on the engineering and the size of that lot, we've sized the parking structures around just over 800 spaces right now, but then there's 400 underneath the Marriott, okay? So around 1,200 total structured parking, which is over what our feasibility study said we needed. There's an additional 30 to 40 surface level spots in front of the restaurant, which we've definitely pushed to get. As you can imagine, let's say in the off season on a Wednesday, you want to go grab lunch at a restaurant, which is open 12 months out of the year. You don't want to have to park in a parking garage. So we've oversized the two structured parkings. To cover on the cost of the parking garage, it's a great question. The way we've proposed the structure is that the TDD would own the parking garage. The TDD is controlled by the city.
That's right.
So if there is any, we're not planning on charging for the garage, but let's say, and the TDD would also pay for the ongoing maintenance, CapEx of the garage. Let's say the TDD board, which is controlled by the city, we're 7 years into this and we say, hey, the TDD is not generating enough money to maintain this garage. As controlling the board, you could say maybe we need to charge for it. Any money that comes into that would go into the TDD, not to me as the developer.
Would it have to go into directly to maintenance of the garage, or could
Yeah, the
it be used
TDD
for
is
other
gonna lay
things?
out how those funds are, the TDD being the owner of the garage would lay out, and the TDD board
Has
would
their
have
own
to
budget.
approve an annual budget and things like that.
And-
For the garage. So we're gonna get, the city's gonna have an incredible amount of control and visibility into the day-to-day activity of the garage and be able to set annual budgets and control the flow of funds in and out of that. My understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong too, if there is excess revenue, okay, that the TDD funds pay into the same trust indenture that would then pay down the TIF bonds?
The TDD sales tax and assessment will pay into the trust indenture for the bonds. Any parking fees imposed by the TDD are not.
They'll go to the
dedicated
TDD.
Bond. But the cooperation and transportation project agreement puts the maintenance of the
Yeah.
garage on your.
Yeah, so I guess the bottom line is if there is ever charging on the garage, that's going to be overseen by the TDD board, the TDD is going to be the owner of the garage, which the city controls. So still stuff to figure out on that. We don't know how to predict it, but at the end of the day, the city's going to control the TDD board. I have representation on the TDD board, but the city controls the board.
Okay.
And just to record, the TDD board is 5 members. The developer appoints 2, we appoint 3. So when he says we control the board, we appoint the majority.
What I'm fishing for more is if there is revenue here, if there is at the end of the year, we've got
Yeah.
$200,000, can we go fix an extra road with it? Or does it have to be
No, it has to
used?
stay. Has to stay in this project.
All right. Any other questions?
While I'm up here, I would just
Yeah.
comment on the days open.
I mean,
We're happy
okay.
to commit to by month. One thing we'll need to take into consideration is these water parks and amusement parks, you do have to shut them down for what I would call an extended period, maybe 2 weeks at a time for cleaning and maintenance and stuff like that. It's not like you can do it in the evenings every night. So there are periods that we'll have to select during slower times where we can shut down for like 2 weeks at a time for full draining and cleaning and things like that. But we can work with you on figuring out a monthly days. And we have a seasonality schedule on both the amusement park and the water park, which are a little bit different, but we can work off of that to figure out what's best.
Great.
I was going to say something too while you're up here, because I've had many talks with the developers and Spikerman and Mr. White, and I just want it very clear to everybody out there that the redevelopment plan, which we passed last board meeting, again, is basically the idea. Now, this is the nuts and bolts, but I was talking to Cole today too. It's not like the city is giving up $55 million and they can't do all this stuff. If you pass this tonight, then they still need to do all that stuff, or it's null and void. So we're not voting on something and say, hey, if we vote on this, then all of a sudden they don't do that, oh, we just messed up. No, they have to follow this. And just to be clear, the redevelopment plan was the idea. The agreement is something that one of the two sides comes up with that, and then it goes to the other side, and then they negotiate. And that's where the last TIF broke down. We came up with a plan. We wrote the first redevelopment agreement. It wasn't favorable, so the other side quit. With this one, we came up with an agreement, and very much in the city's favor. Sent that over to them. They made some suggestions and tweaks, but when you look at this agreement, this was written very professionally. It was written to protect the city's best interests, and it was written so that if they don't do all these things, the city is not on the hook. So I just wanted to point that out in layman's terms. Was that pretty close, Mr. Spikerman?
Thank you very much.
All right. Alderman Hoffman.
So I wasn't sure you were coming up. Is this where I can fire a few questions at you, or was that later on in the agenda? I don't.
Go ahead, because we're gonna. This is what's on the first to pass or not pass tonight.
I feel like this is the important one. Since you're here, we might as well knock out my questions.
Go for it.
Okay. What's the status of the timeshares? Are you guys still in negotiations? Have you made progress?
I am a proud owner of one of the timeshares as of today, so that's our deed. They've, as of yesterday, notified us they're not partaking in blanket negotiations. They wouldn't tell us why. We've started the acquisition process of individual units. I closed on the first one today. We have 11 more that are teed up for closing. I would suspect our number will be north of 100 sometime in the third quarter. Like I mentioned at the last meeting, now that I'm an owner, they have to share with me the list of all the other owners, and we plan on making a public tender offer of the 11 that are imminent. These are all unsolicited people coming to us. I mean, It's not the ideal path, but there is a path. We are an owner as of now, so we have rights as an owner to get information, and we intend to proceed still on multiple paths. We told their attorney yesterday that we planned on continuing to reach out very frequently to try to re-engage in blanket discussions. Candidly, we don't know. They gave us a very trite answer, very, very short. Hey, I'm not, he said, hey, I'm not authorized to share why.
Okay.
But
I'm just curious where the
we're
progress
marching down
was.
that path, and that was one of the things on my list to share with you guys is an update on the timeshares. Real quickly, I think when I left the meeting a couple weeks ago, there was a couple other things that I know were hot topics, and the traffic study being one. We did get the draft traffic study yesterday. Lockmuller said they would have it submitted to the city next week, and the other districts, the MoDOT and everybody else. The draft says, her email to us was that the surrounding road system has capacity to accommodate the proposed development without significant infrastructure improvements. However, here's the improvements they're recommending, which we've already said we're great with. MoDOT to request installation of a traffic signal at the intersection of 54 westbound off-ramp at the development's access to make sure that they have a means of controlling possible future lines and queues on the westbound off-ramp. That's something that we would pay for 100% of. The widening of Jeffries Road from the westbound ramp to the north access drive to provide at least 22 feet of width, which we are fine with. We can accommodate that. We would pay for that, widening of Jeffries Road. And then the sidewalk that we've always been talking about. They did indicate that they, as you know, they tested at Jeffries Road and Lakeport Drive, Sun Circle, Highway 54 westbound at Jeffries Road at Osage Beach Parkway, 54 eastbound off-ramp at the Parkway, Case Road at Sycamore Lane, 54 west at Case, 54 east at Case, and Osage Beach Parkway at Case. They used 2023 baselines. They took a 2027 projection, which is when everything's fully open. And then I believe they take it out to 2040 something based off of stuff. They use seasonality factors. They also increased the counts by as much as 50%, the predicted counts by as much as 50% to stress test the intersections, and they still believe there's capacity within the system except for those recommended changes at this current time. They, as we talked about before, that'll be submitted to the city, and essentially, every time we come in front of Carrie and the team for approvals, it'll be considered how the traffic is. It doesn't mean that there may be more than that. These are just recommendations, so ultimately, I think it's the city that will tell us when we come in for permits on stuff, hey, we reviewed the traffic study and we're good with it, or we reviewed the traffic study and we want to consider this too. So we're very happy. I think everybody should be happy that there's capacity there. And I think we've done our due diligence there, and we'll have it next week. So I know the timeshares, which you mentioned, the traffic study, the fire district, there's been multiple meetings with the fire district, and I think right now that the two sides of legal counsels are working through mechanics on what's possible and what's not, but there's been really good open communication with the fire district as well. So I think those were kind of the three things I needed to report on.
I have 2 or 3 more questions. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in, but.
Yeah, go for it.
Floor is yours.
Okay. Does the Skywheel present any problems with the FAA? I didn't see it in there anywhere. I don't know if it does. The height, the proximity to the bridge,
Yeah,
nothing?
there's like flight path studies and stuff like that that's done, but we're not in the flight path.
Okay, not with the hospital, with.
No.
Okay, great. And my last one, this is kind of 2-part. Last time you were here, you said that you had made an offer to the school in some capacity. I was wondering if it was accepted or if it was still on the table or what the status of it is.
It was not accepted. They did counter. They've subsequently met with the city to discuss what could be possible. Our offer continues to stand that we're willing to pay for an SRO officer at Osage Beach Elementary for 20 years, as well as make some type of donation to their 501c3 to help with programming that they can identify. That's not something we need to get figured out today. I would say we have had good communication with Dr. Kirksey, and we've met with him privately a couple times. I know he's met with the city. We continue, even if we're not required to do something with the school district, we intend to do something with the school district.
And I appreciate hearing
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So then this is the last part of the question. And I just need I'm hoping you can clarify it for me. I've asked 10 different people and I've kind of gotten 10 different answers. When we get to the super TIF, because you said that if we don't get the super TIF, this is going to kill this project. I keep hearing that we need 100% of the people behind it. Does that include the school board? Does it include the county? Who is that 100%? You know, because if we don't get it worked out with the school board, I would hate for us to do all of this work and then get to the super TIF part of this and we're undermined.
That's a good question. So when they talk about participation, that we're past that point. Is the participation means if there was something, we couldn't let the school district say, hey, we want to keep 50% of ours, even though we want to keep 50% of our revenue. The only group that can opt out is the fire district. There's other things that continue to get paid no matter what, like the disability, blind, things like that.
Anything that there's special legislation for the fire district
Yeah.
and certain other
But-
things that opt out of TIF.
But just because they voted no at the TIF commission meeting is not them, it is still 100% participation from them.
Okay.
Okay, they can vote no, but TIF commission pressed it forward, so we're past that.
It's just a concern of mine that,
Yeah.
it'd be nice if we got to the point we're going to Jeff City, we're all on the same page.
It is not required, but what I told Dr. Kirksey was, it would be great to get to the point to get, even though you couldn't vote yes or couldn't recommend voting yes at the TIF commission, to get a letter of support from you to DED for the super TIF application.
Sure.
Similarly with the county. It's not uncommon that that's happened. On our recent TIF in Chesterfield, we had that same thing where the school district representatives voted against it. And then at the final deal, they sent a letter supporting it, saying, hey, we've gotten to that point, even though they voted no. That would be great, but it's not necessary for the super TIF. We've obviously met with DED multiple times in Jefferson City. They're very aware of what the vote outcome was and who voted in favor and who voted against at the TIF commission meeting. They're also aware that we continue discussions with the school district particularly.
Well, I appreciate that
Yeah.
the lines of communication are open between you and Mr. Kirksey and hopefully the entire school board. But, okay, well, that's all I had. Thank you for answering the questions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and board.
Thank you. Alderman Rose.
I have two questions. I've not heard or read anything about comments and didn't know if you've negotiated, I presume, or have talked with the mayor and UE about those heavy-duty electrical pieces of equipment that are out there that people ask me about. And I said, well, I'm sure they're addressing that, but I've not heard anything about that.
Yeah, Ameren was one of the first groups we
I bet.
engaged with. Candidly, probably even before we engaged with you folks. They've been very actively engaged. They have a team of engineers working on it. We're working on individual loads of the rides we're getting to them, the hotel loads. They know when capacity's coming on, when it's, so they know like what they need to plan for in 24 and 25, 26, 27. They've also shared with us what their existing plans were even before this project was proposed. So we're working in concert with them. There'll be, movement of lines, things like that. But yeah, their engineering team is working with our engineering team. It's great that we're using Cochrane on our civil work, given how much they know about the city's requirements and working with Ameren in general.
Okay.
So there's a really good working relationship with Ameren, as well as on the shoreline management as well. So everything from the location and number of docks to what's going to happen with the seawall and riprap. They're very engaged
Okay.
on that.
I presume you had, but I just not
Yeah.
heard any feedback. And lastly, the sidewalk, I presume, will be on the same side as your entertainment. And will that go all the way past Dog Days, or will that just end at Dog Days property line?
You remember? All the way past Dog Days, right? We were going to the end, correct? Yeah, to the end of, past Dog Days.
All the way to the end of the peninsula?
Yeah, all the way to the end of the road,
Are you sure about that?
City owned.
City-owned.
to the end of the city-owned road.
Oh, I thought it was city-owned road.
About 300 feet past Dog.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right.
Good catch.
Any other comments or
No private
questions? Alderman Ross.
I just have one quick comment. There was a lot of conversation about the, excuse me, the timeshares last meeting and how, there may be concerns that people don't want to sell. I just want to say, to my knowledge, no one has complained yet from the timeshare group that owns a timeshare about this project. We've had several people come and ask. I'm sure you've been exposed to them also about how do I sell? I'd like to get out. But there's some implications out there on social media and so forth that we're being Big Brother, and people are going to get thrown out and things like that. And to this date, no one spoke against this from the timeshare community. So I just wanted to state that.
That's good.
Very good.
Just a follow-up on the sidewalk.
Alderman Hoffman.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you said it's going to go down past Dog Days? Because I don't know if you've been down to Dog Days, but the entry there gets really narrow. I'm just wondering how you're going to build a sidewalk through there?
There'll be some widening and stuff like that. Cochran Engineering's laid it out, way above my
Okay.
pay grade on the
So
engineering side, but
Does
yeah.
the maintenance end, down past Dog Days, past
300
the?
feet, he said.
Past Dog Days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, basically past their parking lot.
Okay, all right, well, thank you.
And we have met with Mark Barrett a number of times. He's been great and a huge help on just kind of understanding his traffic flow patterns and wanting to understand ours. So we've engaged him to help figure out the best solution for all of us.
Great, okay.
All right. Seeing no other questions, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion.
Alderman Hoffman, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Morose. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right.
That's ordinance 23,
Yes,
Bill
it's
2347. I wanted to clarify that.
2347 under new business.
Since we're
Yes.
jumping around.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
All
That
right.
was the only reason I wanted to
Right.
Yep, very good.
make sure I knew where we were at.
All right, and the next, we're going to move to new business J. I'll wait for a second while you get ready. This is also new business. Bill 23-54, an ordinance authorizing the City of Osage Beach, Missouri to issue a taxable industrial revenue bond, Lakeport Village Project, Series 2023, in a principal amount not to exceed $360 million for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of acquiring, constructing, and improving a facility for an industrial development project in the city, approving a plan for the project and authorizing the city to enter into certain agreements and take certain other actions in connection therewith. This is the first reading. City Attorney Cole Bradbury, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the Board of Aldermen. This is the Chapter 100 ordinance we spoke about earlier, the second of the four horsemen. With that, I'll let Mark Spikerman, who do a far better job of explaining this than me.
Thank you. This one is 150 pages summed up in 2 slides. This was an incentive that we also used on the Sycamore Creek project. It basically authorizes the city to enter into a leaseback transaction with the developer, the purpose of which, under state law, facilitates a sales tax exemption on construction materials. Essentially, the developer is allowed to borrow the city's sales tax exemption certificate, use it to purchase steel and lumber and concrete, build the project. Once the project's built, the leaseback transaction terminates, and he gives the sales tax exemption certificate back to the city. And just got a couple of notes on these slides regarding how it all works. I wish it were easier, but it's not. It's, the Constitution involves this bond issue. The bonds are not payable from any city tax revenues at all. They're payable from lease revenues paid by the developer under that leaseback transaction. And if you're really into diagrams, this is how it all works. If you follow all that through, it's actually very circular. Developer pays lease payments to the city. The city uses the lease payments to make bond payments to the bond trustee. The bond trustee uses the bond payments to pay bond debt service back to the developer. So it all kind of goes in a circle. It actually, the way we draft the documents, we allow the bond trustee to just make book entries rather than having dollars actually change hands because they're, again, it's all circular. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding either the process or the nature of the incentive.
All right, comments from the board, questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve first reading of Bill 2354.
Very good. Alderman Rucker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading passes. All right, now we're moving back to the old business E, which is Bill 23-44. This is the second reading. I'll wait for a second while you get there. You there?
New York.
All right. This is Bill 23-44, an ordinance designating a portion of the city of Osage Beach, Missouri as a redevelopment area, approving the Lakeport Village Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Plan, making findings related thereto, approving a redevelopment project for the redevelopment area, and adopting tax increment financing with respect thereto, and authorizing certain actions by city officials. City Attorney Cole Bradbury.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is the TIF plan, which is the first of the four horsemen. As you know, you all voted on this 2 weeks ago at its first reading, and this is the second and final reading. Really, the only additional significance of this is that once this plan is approved, it locks in the but-for and blight findings that the city has made, and it means that construction, or at least demolition, can begin. So you will see this will authorize the developer to go ahead and start demolishing those buildings. With that, this is is the beginning of the end to this long project. And I just want to thank Mark and Jeff, and Patrick and Jeff, and everybody else who's worked on this with us. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have approved second reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman, roll call, please.
Alderman Rucker?
Yes. I'm trying to find a note.
Yes.
Alderman Rose?
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman?
Yes.
Alderman Osteen? Alderman Schuman? Passes.
All right, second reading passes. And I wanted to thank Mr. White with that additional thank you with Cole Bradbury, so thank you, everybody. We are going to move on now to our unfinished business. I believe that has everything to do with this project.
That would be everything on the Lakeport Village.
So if anybody from the audience would like to stick around, you're certainly welcome to. If you're not interested in the West Virginia, it might get a little interesting. We're going to be talking about some of our sexual ordinances. But you're welcome to stick around, but if you'd like to leave now, that'd be just fine too. This is for adults only.
But it's still an open meeting.
Shouldn't we hold off till?
All right, we're going to move on. Unfinished business, Bill 23-40, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 210 offenses, Article 9 sexual offenses, Section 210.1500 definitions, adding new Section 210.1570 regulating sexually oriented business, removing Sections 210.1870 regulating erotic dance establishments, erotic dance restrictions, licensings, and records. This is the second reading. Cole Bradbury.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I have nothing further to add on this ordinance. We discussed it at length last time.
Any additional comments or questions from the board?
I have a couple questions, Cole,
Alderman
if you don't
Hoffman.
mind.
Absolutely.
Back on, was this page 80 of 2341? In here, it says the performance of acts of simulated acts or simulated acts of sexual intercourse. That could be construed as someone at dog days just dancing on somebody. What, I don't see the need for the simulated acts part.
So the backstory on this drafting in particular is, while doing some research, I went and looked at what the state has. This is a verbatim copy and paste from the state, or the state, it's actually a regulation for liquor licenses. And so rather than try to reinvent the wheel and do it our own way and therefore add a second layer, you have the state rules and then you also have to follow the city rules, I just copied the state rules so that we are consistent with the state. But this is something that is, I agree, I was going to word it differently and try to parse that out a little bit more. But rather than try to create some different set of regulations, the unintended consequences, liquor licensees already have to do this anyways, comply with this anyways, because their state liquor license depends on it.
I know I'm probably nitpicking a little bit, but, the state doesn't have 6 pool bars at the lake, where people are drinking and having fun. So I just want to make sure that we all see simulated acts in here and hope that it's construed the right way for us.
I don't think this is, well, I've only been city attorney since February, but nobody's ever brought a simulated acts complaint about a liquor license to my knowledge. Chief can chime in if he's aware of any.
Not that I'm aware of.
So I don't foresee this being a major issue, but really, if it's going to be in the state law, we might as well just copy theirs and go no further. I mean, with this and several of the following ordinances, ultimately, we are reducing the amount of regulation and red tape on our city businesses because they're just going to have to follow one set of rules, which is we have both ours and the state's, but they will be the same, so there won't be 2 different layers.
Okay, I just wanted to point it out. I understand your position on it.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Morose, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Rucker, roll call, please.
Alderman Hoffman.
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen. Alderman Schuman.
All right, second reading passes. Next few are very similar. This is Bill 23-41, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 600, alcoholic beverage, Section 600.050, exposure to private parts of body or simulation thereof in commercial establishments licensed by chapter where intoxicating liquor is served or consumed of the city code for various purposes as set forth. Second reading, City Attorney.
I won't repeat myself, but same as last time.
Comments or questions?
Happy to answer.
Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading? Alderman Rucker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross, roll call, please.
Alderman Schuman. Alderman Morose.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen. Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman.
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. Next, we have Bill 23-42, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 405 zoning regulations, Section 405.020 definitions, and Section 405.590 special uses require special permission of the city code for various purposes as set forth. This is a second reading. Comments or questions? Oh, I'm sorry, City Attorney. Anything new?
No, I just want to take a little bit of pride in this one. We are reducing the length of this ordinance by at least a page, and anytime we get to do that, I think that's a good thing.
All right. Comments or questions from the board? Alderman Hoffman.
On the zoning map, page 105 maybe, number 8, sexual-oriented businesses. This use may only be permitted in C1, I1, I2. Light industrial, is that?
That's a fairly common practice. I mean, obviously so that was written, 20 years ago, at least 30 years ago. But that's always been a common feature of or regulation of.
If you go to urban settings, a lot of times when you find those places, they are in the industrial areas.
Okay.
It's the, industrial is not just industrial, but it's also the most intense use area within the community. Okay, so the feeling is if you're in the middle of an industrial area, you're not very close to residential.
Residential, oh.
Yeah.
And you're keeping them out of the shopping center and things like that.
Sure, I just
Yep.
wasn't sure if it was industrial, so.
A lot of these, and
Okay.
we can debate whether it's appropriate, but there's quite a bit of case law and other stuff that's developed around these, but there is for better or worse, a mentality, and the state statute does it too, of really kind of shoving these uses into high intensity use.
Separating them.
Yeah, separating them from more sensitive uses like, Pruitt's Point and residential areas and things like that. So
Okay.
that's part of why that's there.
All right, I only have one other question. Number 3, next page over. All access to and from adult entertainment establishments shall be provided from a street classified as an arterial street. I Googled this. I didn't know what it was. What is that for us?
Everything that's a state highway. 54, KK, 42. So it keeps
Parkway.
us off of the collector status streets and then the locals. Collectors being basically the old lake roads. And then locals obviously being the smaller roads that go back into, the residential areas. So the function of it is those uses can only be located on 42 KK, Osage Beach Parkway, and of course the highway, but there's no access to the highway.
Right.
So those would be the roads.
So the only place,
The only place.
42 KK?
And that's current within our code now too. So,
Okay,
and also typical.
right, thank you for clarifying. I'd never seen that word before.
We actually have a classification system, and so those would be the roads that are classified as arterial.
That's all I had. Thanks.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve second reading? Alderman Ross, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Morose, roll call, please.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Morose. Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen. Alderman Schuman. Alderman Hoffman.
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
All right, second reading passes.
Done until marijuana.
Last part of unfinished business doesn't have to do with you.
Finally.
All right, Bill 23-43, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign a 5-year agreement with OpenGov for the installation and use of their asset and operations management software for an amount not to exceed $134,000. Kevin Crooks, Public Works, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike Welty actually pitched it for me during the first reading. But the Cartograph, as it's known, and its parent company, OpenGov, offers the best platform for the money. For us, it is an upper tier product that larger cities would use, and I highly recommend it due to the fact that we have an immense amount of infrastructure, most of it geared towards the sewer collection side. But as Mike probably said, we looked at the next runners up, and the lowest bidder never really came close to the product we're recommending today. And there was a more expensive upper tier one from this called CityWorks, or it's CityWorks, but we found that to be cost prohibitive and really not in the city's interest. So unless there's any questions involving OpenGov, which is the asset management, labor management, materials management system for Public Works, and not just Public Works, but parks and airports and potentially other departments as well. I can take those questions, but otherwise I highly recommend.
I have one question.
Alderman Hoffman.
Was 5 years the only option? Software gets antiquated so quickly?
Yeah,
Was 3 years not an option, or?
It's a living, breathing, cloud-based platform. So throughout the year, even more than once a year, you'll get patches and updates. It's not like a disk or a standalone or islanded program. Since it is cloud-based, it's being patched constantly, upgraded constantly, and the 5-year contract is pretty standard for CMMS systems. And it's a 5-year contract, but I've never known. I've used OpenGov Cartograph for about 13 years, and there's never been any cities that I'm ever aware of that have ever left it. So I expect if you approve it, we'll continue with that for quite some time.
Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Hoffman, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Rucker, roll call, please.
Alderman Morose?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Rucker?
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman?
Yes.
Alderman Osteen? Alderman Schuman?
All right, second reading passes. Now we're moving on to the public hearing under new business. This is a public hearing rezoning case 412 by Topsider Condominiums. City Planner Kerry Patterson, please.
Yes, Mayor Harmerson, members of the board. Topsider Condominiums LLC is requesting an amendment to their PUD. Back in 2020, you may remember that the Board of Aldermen approved a PUD that would allow 8 acres of C1B, which is our commercial lodging district, to build 139 condominiums, and 2.5 acres of C1 property for the purposes of building a 250-seat restaurant and a 72-unit hotel. What they're requesting that we make a change to is they would like to put in an additional 8 condominiums, which would require an additional ½ acre to the 8 acres that they were originally approved for, reducing obviously the hotel, restaurant, and general commercial properties to 2 acres for then the purposes of building a single facility, restaurant, and hotel that still contain the 250 units, 250-seat restaurant and 72-unit hotel, and the parking facility that is required to service both. Keeping this in mind, we took this to the Planning Commission at their last meeting in May with a recommendation to approve this requested amendment, and they forwarded it to the Board of Aldermen with a recommendation to approve.
All right, comments, questions from the board? Alderman Ross.
So I have several comments. One, when this project was rezoned, it was originally all commercial. And there was a lot of sensitivity at that time around that prime piece of property, if you will, in the city of Osage Beach becoming residential, for lack, and I don't know that that's quite right, Kerry, but basically a non-sales tax producing property. And the compromise at that time was, in my opinion at least, was that we were going to carve out a piece of commercial property where we could put a restaurant or a hotel. There was conversations at the time and representations that this was a perfect piece of property for a hotel group that had been looking for a unique piece of property for quite some time, and that never came up. What I see at this point is this. We have a piece of property that we are reducing by somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 25% of the commercial to allow this developer to put in even more condominiums that honestly I don't think is in the best interest of the city. I think that there was a reason why we made this a PUD to start with, so that we would have a commercial piece of property that could generate sales tax revenue, and to reduce that by 20 or 25% just so that they can have additional condominiums that make them more money, even though a project already went forward anyway, I don't think is in our best interest, and at this point I don't support.
Absolutely. Public hearing. Please, if you don't mind, sign in.
I'll sign in, Mr. Mayor. My name's Aaron Ellsworth. I'm a local attorney. I represent Topsider, and I greatly appreciate your comments, Mr. Ross. One thing I would say about the change, the condominium footprints remain the same. Units are going up one more level on the 5th building. The commercial footprint, as Mr. Patterson said, the hotel remains the same occupancy. The restaurant remains the same occupancy. So from a commercial standpoint, it does not change the potential for the tax income for the city. When the change is, and if you guys are all familiar with Topsider, we drive past it every day, I'm sure. The lot line simply moved from the front of that slope, or the rock wall, to the back of the rock wall to increase that acreage. And I apologize, the engineer is not here today, but I assume that had to do a little bit with accommodating the number of parking spaces required per unit and getting that half acre, but it's not really detracting from the commercial use of the property. It's simply that wall, the bluff, that divides the condominium units and the hotel and commercial development portion.
Mind if I respond?
Please.
So I would just say this. My impression of what I understood at the time of what I voted on is there was going to be a piece of property there that allowed for a 220-seat restaurant, 220 or 250-seat restaurant, and approximately 72 to 80-room hotel, okay? Now what we're saying is there will be that, but there will be a 220 to 250-seat restaurant inside a 72-room hotel. I've traveled this country quite a lot, have seen few if any of those, and so I don't think that your plan and what you're presenting, to be quite honest, is viable. What I truly believe is that originally when this plan was drawn out, there wasn't room for a hotel and a restaurant as it was displayed to us at that time. And to be quite honest, I don't think there is now. All right, and that's why, and what we're finding is well, if we can just shove the restaurant into the hotel, well, we can satisfy that, and we can get some more hotels or rooms out of here. And to be quite honest, I don't think that there was very good planning to start with. So I just leave it at that.
And I understand your concerns. The current discussion I've had with the developers is more of a rooftop instead of two separate facilities. Is a restaurant and a rooftop type facility. But obviously, this is a free market. We have a 450-room hotel going across the way, and so, I do have the plans here, and with regard to the property line and the change in the half acre, it really is just that wall, and as far as the original planning, the occupancy, the sizes have not changed to my knowledge, as far as the restaurant and hotel.
Right. Any other comments from the public?
I have a question, if I
Yes, please.
could.
For
the
speaker?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Aaron Ellsworth.
Aaron.
I'll try to answer the questions the best I
Okay,
can.
so I wasn't here when this deal was done, but now the deal is done. Is it not an option for the developer to either get into a contract of building it or into a contract of selling it to someone who wants to do it before you put up more condos? Because I'm not seeing any tax revenue is kind of my point.
The footprint on all the condominium buildings has remained the same throughout the project. The difference is on the fifth building, it's going up one more story.
I understand that. I'm saying,
This property is actively marketed and listed for a hotel, restaurant development. Obviously, nobody's purchased it or come forward to purchase the property to develop it that way. And the discussion with the developers now, and I'm not talking to them on a daily basis, I set up the condominium, but they are now discussing themselves about developing it because it hasn't been sold, and there hasn't been somebody to come into this market to do that.
Well, it seems to me that there was a partnership that was agreed upon between the city and the developer, and now the developer's wanting to increase what they're getting without the city getting anything. And to me, it makes more sense to fulfill that obligation, come back to us and ask to have this done, and that seems more viable to me. That's
Okay, well, what I will tell you is it's not a partnership in the sense that what you may typically be thinking of as such as a TIF, okay? TIF and partnerships where the city gives money or tax money towards are things that we can put performance standards in. Conditionalizing zoning requests like this is not something that we can do, okay? So if somebody comes in and wants to rezone their property, okay, to put in something specific, the one thing when they come in with a PUD, we have a specific, this is what we want to do and this is what we're going to do. Part of the recommendation that we put forward to you, fortunately, I suppose, does not take into account what we believe that their intention may be, okay? If you have your property rezoned to commercial, it stays commercial and you can build something that is allowed within the land use code of a commercial property on that piece, or you cannot. In this particular situation, What I will tell you is that when they initially came to the city to request this, I told them that I wouldn't be able to give a recommendation to approve that piece of property if it was completely condominiums. Because back in 2006, we removed condominiums from the C1 general commercial zone in order to protect pieces of property just like this, just like the property that the Oasis is going on, the Hammonds properties, so that the city didn't have to sit back and see condominiums go on all those prime pieces of property without us getting any tax incentive or tax money that would come back to us. So in 20 years, we're looking at a 20-year-old condominium development that we have gotten no tax money off of and will not. What I will tell you is that my comment to them at that point is if you can come back with something, you know, that will provide that tax income and make sense to the community, and makes sense to the property, then we'll consider it, and then I would consider, you know, my recommendation. When they came back with, you know, the 72 units, and they came back with the 250 seat restaurant. I'm not going to, as a planner, be able to look at it and go, you know, I've traveled all around the country and I've never seen one of these, and because I've never seen one, I don't believe that you're going to put one, okay, when we make a recommendation to this board. The intention that they are claiming that they are wanting to do was allowed by the original zone. So the original zone and PUD that we put in here did not say that they had to have two separate buildings. It also allowed for a single building that contained both. Okay.
Are they under a time restraint for putting in a PUD, or can they do it in a year?
That's
Can they do it
zoning. There is no performance standards on zoning. Okay, that is not allowed by law. That's conditionalizing zoning. So that is not allowed. That's like saying you have a certain amount of time to put your house on your property after you buy it.
I guess that's kind of my question here. I feel like the timing of the whole thing doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Now, you know, your initial question of can't you go out and you know, get a contract and come back and ask for the rezoning after you have a contract, you know, that's certainly something that they can do if they feel like they need to do it in order for the board to approve it. But I'm going to tell you right now, we shouldn't tell them that they have to do that.
No, I'm just asking if it's a possibility.
That certainly would be, but we're not telling them that they need to do that to get our approval.
Understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think the deal is the way it was originally approved, and I'll be honest, I wasn't that involved at the very beginning on the zoning issue. But at this point, from the developer's perspective, you know, it's been a successful project. They've completed building 1, building 2 is almost complete with sales going through, I would say in the next couple weeks to 30 days in building 2. Building 3 is under construction, so they're planning on building 5 now, and, you know, foundations for building 4 is coming. So the additional units are in building 5, and it's just simply another story. So I understand what you're saying, and can we come back? But at this point, we're really deep into the planning phase for building 5 as well. So,
but that sounds like directly from you, all of this is going great except for what's going to generate sales tax.
That is also not the greatest statement by them either.
What do you
Okay,
mean?
so, well, simply by saying that we're in the process of planning this out and we need to do this and you need to, you know, approve the rezoning so that we can do what we're planning is not really a great statement to make, you know, at a rezoning. What I will tell you, Alderman Hoffman and all the other aldermen, is from the perspective of this particular request, one of the main things that I looked at and look at anytime somebody brings a PUD amendment in is the request that is in front of me today, something that I would have recommended approval of when they came back in 2020. And the answer to myself was yes, I would have. Functionally, because they are providing those things that will provide us sales tax in theory, okay? Yes, it's hypothetical, it is in theory, but regardless, there is 2 acres of their property that is encumbered by this PUD that they either need to use or they completely lose the value of. So 2 acres, you know, if we would have allowed them just to do condominiums with the entire 10.5 acres, is 38 more units total, not 8, okay? 38 more units is another building. Now, on that particular piece of property, it would have needed to be another building that was either up the hill or they would have had to have gone taller on their buildings. But the function of it is that the city still remains with 2 acres of taxable, sales taxable, general commercial property that can only have, a hotel and a restaurant at this point, because that's what they brought to us. The problem could have been is if they did not come in with something that said, we're gonna do a hotel and a restaurant, is it could have been 5 acres of storage facilities, which we also don't get any sales tax on, but are allowed in the general commercial zone. So the ideology behind the hotel and the restaurant is also something that is workable within the entire development, whereas you have condominiums and the use of the restaurant and the use of the hotel works together with the use of a condominium. Whereas if it was an auto shop or storage units or something like that, they would have lost value. The condominium owners would have lost some value, and intrinsic value of their own little community. The ideology was to create something that worked with all 3 different uses.
Are they completely restricted to hotel and restaurant on that?
They are completely restricted in the C1 to a 250-seat, 72 unit hotel. And of course, at this point, they're asking for a single facility. To be candid with you, I'm not sure that separate facilities on that 2 acres, with the topography being what it is, could handle separate facilities and get all of the parking requirements that they would need.
All right, I'm going to speak on this. I am on the Planning and Zoning Board, and I see it a little bit differently than Alderman Ross, because especially when I ran for mayor, my point was, and it bothered me that it was said that they had to have something on that property to generate taxes, because my argument at the time was, if they build condominiums, people will come. And while they may not spend money at the restaurant, they're going to be spending money all over the city of Osage Beach. They're going to be spending money elsewhere, so bring the people. And the way we looked at on the planning and zoning, which was approved unanimously, is basically, again, I try to simplify things, it's the same thing, but rather than 2 buildings, it's 1. You're getting your hotel, you're getting your 250-seat restaurant, people are going to spend money there, you're going to get tax revenue there, you're going to have another 48 units there of people spending money not just at the hotel, but across the street at the Oasis and everywhere. So I don't want to see us say no, because then all of a sudden you're not bringing people here and you're not getting the same thing to prove. It's just basically, rather than 2 buildings, 1. Is that pretty much true?
It is. The one thing, you said 48 units, it's only 7 more units than what.
Okay, but rather than 2 different, a hotel
Yes.
and
There's 1 facility instead of
same thing,
2
just 1
separate
structure.
buildings.
So
Mr. Mayor, can I respond to that?
Sure.
'Cause I would tend to agree with the first part of what you said, that but the deal is done now, and that agreement was made. And while, yes, I agree, people come here and they go out and they spend money, we're talking about 5 condos owned by, 12 to 15 people going out and spending money versus getting this part of the agreement done, which is the taxable revenue, which is the hotel and the restaurant. And it doesn't seem to me like that's moving forward, and that's what I'm concerned with.
okay, anybody else? Comments or questions? Alderman Rucker.
Carrie, help me here. Back in 2020, when this came to the board, that piece of property was that, we're talking a total of 8 acres there, aren't we?
10 and a half.
10, okay.
Yeah.
That 10 and a half acres was zoned commercial.
General commercial, yeah.
Okay, so they wanted to change it from having commercial property and commercial buildings on there to having residential. They wanted to put some condos
Yeah,
on
they
there
wanted to put condos
that would not be allowed by that commercial.
That wouldn't be allowed by
Okay,
general commercial.
And again, my take on it was, okay, that we're giving up some of the commercial property, which generates revenue. And we're giving that up, which is part of our planning and zoning for our city to look at the whole thing. If we don't have property that's generating revenue, how are we going to pay the bills?
You're
Okay,
probably
we
the
are
only.
sales tax, that's what we are. We are not property. Now, if we're talking property tax and sales tax, we're in a different discussion because then they're going to be generating some revenue, but they're not. So they're generating services. Services, yes, they're paying for water and sewer, but they're not paying for police. They're not paying for ambulance. And those are things that we have to have revenue from. Okay, so when they take that revenue of that property and take it and put it into residential, in my mind, one of the caveats they brought was the hotel and the restaurant, which is going to generate some revenue and help to offset the revenue that the residential portion is not.
Right.
Now where we're at is they want to add additional residents. I realize it's a level, one more level up. That doesn't really bother me too much because they're still using the same footprint. But now this is where I'm a little confused. Now they're taking the hotel and the restaurant, they're not changing that? Because they said they were going to give us 250 seats and 72 rooms. So they're still going to provide that?
That is what they will be required to provide if approved, okay?
And that's what they were approved at the first time, right?
Yes.
The only difference is we have to understand is that we don't, I mean, this is not a TIF, this is a different animal. We do not have clawbacks. We cannot mandate they have to get it done at a certain time like we just went through. We have to understand we're a different piece of property. It's a difference in a circumstance. So they can do that tomorrow or they can do that in 100 years.
I guess, and while I completely understand what Alderman Ross is saying as it pertains to, he hasn't seen any of these type of restaurants, hotel combinations. The basics of what I would tell you is after the project has taken place and the walls that have been built and, what have you, in talking with their engineer, I don't foresee there being a possibility of there being separate facilities anyway, whether the additional half acre is still part of the C1 or not, because it is basically the backside of that wall that they removed, okay?
So we approved it, when we approved it, we said it had to be two separate buildings?
No, we did not.
So why, so there's no change in that? I guess I'm trying to understand the only change I really see here is they're adding more condos. What else, why are we even talking about this other stuff?
The basics of it is, that's it. The basics of it is that we're taking a half acre from the general commercial and putting it with the condominium, making it C1B because you have to have that additional half acre to get the density to allow the additional units that they're requesting. Okay, so you have to have 2,500 square foot of property for each unit, condominium unit, okay? So they have enough current that is zone C1B for 139 units. In order for them to get to 147, they need an additional half acre. That is zone C1B and will be part of the condominium lots.
That'll be essentially parking lots.
It'll essentially be the side of the hill.
Because the footprint
Yeah.
is,
Yes.
they're going up. And so
Yes.
that half acre is coming away from the
The
potential.
nothing that is there currently.
Right.
So, the basics of it is with the ideology, if the developer follows through and builds the hotel restaurant, then we lose absolutely nothing. If he doesn't follow through and he builds nothing, then we end up with 2 acres of commercial property that at some point in the future, somebody's going to come in here and say, hey, we would like to buy this 2 acres of commercial property, but we don't want to build a hotel and a restaurant. We want to build this commercial use. And it would be another amendment of the PUD.
I do want to make a point. The developer is planning on completing the project as the original plan with the hotel and restaurant, but they're finishing the condominium project. They're staging on top of that hill. It's been marketed for sale. And the half acre change is literally something that cannot be developed. It is that rock wall you see that forms the outer side of the parking lot. And it's really just an acreage number. But the plan has not changed. And they're just now conceptualizing, well, nobody's purchased it, nobody's building it. So what are we going to do? What are our plans for the hotel and restaurant? And so those conversations are coming into fruition now. And what's the next step of this development? We've moved through the condos. What do we do on the commercial tract? Is somebody going to buy it, or are we going to develop it? And those conversations are happening. So if there's any other questions I can answer, I'd be happy to.
All right. Any other comments or questions from the public? Any other comments or questions from the board? Do I have a motion? Alderman Morose.
Question on that hotel and restaurant. Could we put a time frame? We cannot.
No. All right. Any other comments or questions?
Well, that's in black and white, isn't it?
It's considered conditionalizing zoning to put a time frame or performance standards. We're not putting citizen money into the development like you do in a TIF or something like that, where we can say, now you've got to perform. This is no different than you buying a lot and us saying, okay, now that you bought this residential lot, you have to have your house built within 18 months.
Okay.
All right. Do I have a motion to close public hearing? Alderman Ross. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, public hearing is closed. Now we're going to move on to Bill 23-46, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, adopting an amendment to the zoning map of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri by rezoning a parcel of land as described in rezoning case number 421. This is the first reading. Comments or questions that have not been answered yet? Alderman Rucker.
I would like to make a motion, we table this till the next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Could you tell us why?
Seconding?
Do you have a reason, or are we allowed to say a reason?
Yeah,
for
I'd
it?
like to have the full board here to vote on it.
I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, this bill's been tabled. Next, we'll move on to Bill 23-39, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, amending Chapter 210 offenses, Section 210.1800, possession of marijuana, Section 210.1810, possession of controlled substance, Section 210.18130, unlawful possession of drug paraphernalia, and creating a new Section 210.1880, hashish. Did I say that right? Hash. And synthetic cannabinoids of the city code for various purposes as set forth. I need to do some education on my drugs. All right, first reading. City Attorney Cole Bradbury, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is the fruit of our labors on the discussion we had on the public hearing on marijuana back on 420, if you'll recall. And I've made a few changes based on input from the board. And what you see before you is mostly the same as what we had. I did make the change to the, let's see, so it would be subsection D. You'll see that has been changed a little bit to accommodate the board's apparent desire to see businesses have to opt out of permitting it rather than opt in. Also, a few other changes, very slight changes about to the scale as far as where you cannot smoke or burn, so on and so forth. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I did want to add the one that was originally in an early discussion piece that I don't think made it to our discussion on April 20th. Was Chief Davis and I had originally considered proposing to ban the consumption of marijuana in a liquor licensed establishment, and we removed that based on some input. I did want to point out that while doing the research on the previous liquor license ordinance that we were discussing, right after that lewdness paragraph, there is a section of the current state liquor licensing regulations which ban the consumption of marijuana in a liquor licensed establishment. So it's not in our ordinance, but their state liquor licenses do still depend on it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer your other questions.
All right, comments or questions from the board?
Just to clarify, that means
Alderman Hoffman.
according to the state, you cannot consume marijuana at dog days.
Correct.
Okay.
On the premises of any establishment with a liquor license.
Interesting.
It's even bandanas.
Comments or questions? Anybody else? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
So moved.
Alderman Rose, do I have a second? Alderman Ross. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading carries. All right, and this is E. We already took care of B. Bill 23-48, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the expenditure of funds for promotional efforts to support Lake of the Ozarks Bike Fest 2023 event support request in an amount not to exceed $3,000. This is the first reading. I believe Mitchell Moon is going to take this, Economic Development Specialist.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. All right, let me get my notes ready for you. Heather Brown with the Lake of the Ozarks CVB has requested $3,000, which is the same amount as we granted last year. These funds will be used to market and promote the event. Bike Fest is scheduled September 13th through September 17th and has an estimated attendance of about 60,000 visitors to our community. This is the first and only application we've received for community event support for this year. And by city code, this fund is to be used for supporting event activities that bring visitors, trade, and businesses into the city. For additional questions, Heather Brown is here with us tonight. You can direct questions to her or I.
Very good.
Any
Anybody
other
have any questions for Mr. Moon or Mrs. Brown? For Heather Brown?
Well,
Heather, you want to come on up, please?
if you don't mind.
Yes. Alderman Hoffman.
So, and I'm probably just don't know, but I was under the impression that the city of Lake Ozark kind of takes the lead on this. It's their event, is it not?
No, this event actually covers 3 counties. So we promote it as a whole Lake of the Ozarks event. There's different vendor villages. Harley-Davidson is one of our largest vendor villages in this community. Encore will have a vendor village. Lake Breeze Resort has a vendor village, which was new last year. Indian Motorcycle has sponsored, I guess you would say, Lake Ozark to take care of maybe shutting down roadways and such to kind of offset some cost for the police department and things like that. But it is not just a Lake Ozark event. We actually have studies that show how many people go to Harley-Davidson and Osage Beach. And if you actually ask some of the patrons of Lake Ozark, they say all of the people hang out in Osage Beach and they don't get tax dollars from that event, which is surprising. It is actually such a large event for us that Harley-Davidson, they tier these events. So like Sturgis, Daytona, those larger events are, well, Sturgis is the only tier 1. Daytona, believe it or not, is a tier 2 event for Harley-Davidson, and they just moved us to a tier 2 event after last year's event because we became so large. So that's huge for us, meaning that people that attend all these all over, they can get special pins, and there's just a lot of accolades for us having that recognition through Harley-Davidson. They will start sponsoring it on a larger level, even with them. This is a full volunteer committee. Nobody gets paid for this. I volunteer my time. I do a lot of promotion for it. And so all the dollars brought in, we strictly put straight out into marketing and promoting the event.
So I know it brings a lot of revenue to the lake.
It does.
I guess kind of what I'm wondering is, aren't they coming anyway without our $3,000? Because it gets advertised by Harley and every bike organization. It almost seems like throwing, peanuts at the wall.
It's not really peanuts. 3,000 really adds up for us. We rely on sponsorships, or else we can't market this event. We do geofencing, geotargeting. We're the ones that advertise the event. Yes, Harley does a little bit, but we promote it. We actually pay for to promote the Passport program, which we are giving away a anniversary edition Harley-Davidson bike this year, which is huge. And so we have to purchase that bike. I mean, we purchased it at cost, but it still cost us over $20,000. And then, so all these sponsorships help us do that, because again, it's a volunteer organization. So we rely on the sponsorships. In return, City of Osage Beach is on advertising. They're in the promo videos. They're on all the social media, any print ads that we put out, which, by the way, I still have you guys on all of that. I never took you down from last year, so you guys are still getting all of that recognition, and we just appreciate the support. And of course, the support of the police department, keeping everything safe and making sure that everything goes really well. This is a huge event for the community. It would not happen without us promoting and letting people know it's here, so.
Okay, and it brings a lot of revenue, I understand that. I guess
Yes.
I'm gonna ask kind of a tough question. Is there a major uptick in crime whenever this event goes on?
Not too bad, just maybe some accidents.
Okay.
I think for the most part, I think it's motorcycle accidents is what we see. Excuse me, most people are on their best behavior because we have so much law enforcement that's brought in from other counties and communities just to help support our local officers. So Camden County will bring in people from other counties. Miller County does the same thing, as well as other police forces. And so a lot of people know, and we kind of have a pulse that we get told, per se, that, you know, when certain groups come to town, they're kind of being watched. They know they're being watched, so they're typically on their best behavior.
I mean, that's my concern is not the 3,000. I'm just making sure that we're investing in the right thing.
I get
That's
it.
all I'm asking.
Nope. This is one of our larger events. A lot of our lodging community, our restaurants, they are begging to be part of it. They want to be a part of it because it's like a holiday weekend for them. So we want to keep doing that for our community and offering that opportunity to them.
Okay,
So.
thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Alderman Rucker.
I just want to make a comment to my fellow aldermen. We have to realize that we have no control over what other city and county and governmental bodies do. You know, we only have control over ours. So I think for us to make comments that why aren't you going to other cities or other counties, that's, you know, it is what it is. We only control us, and we can't control those other governmental organizations that choose or not choose to support such a thing. So I just think that's something we just have to understand, and we should realize that, you know, we only control us.
I didn't understand, to be honest with you. I
not
thought
many
maybe it was
communities.
permitted by them or something, so.
The other thing is I want to comment, that's a plus on it, but now I'm going to give you a negative. I was in support of this ordinance years and years and years and years and years ago. I have brought this up, and I will continue to bring this up. I believe this money that we put aside should be used as seed money to help things to be promoted within our city and to help those events, whether they do the Bike Fest, whether it is the Veterans Parade, or whatever that may be. I'm a little miffed at a 17-year event that's coming for funding. I do realize, and I remember what occurred a number of years ago. We won't mention names, but sponsorship that you lost, pretty major sponsorship, and there had to be some help, and that's fine. But I have a challenge in my own vote that every year I would like to see us be a seed planting and not an ongoing. That's just my own opinion. But with that being said, I will support it.
That is a valid concern, and I have two things to state on that. As far as the other communities go, not a lot of other cities have the opportunity to ask for event funding. It's just not within their structure, I guess, or at least not that we're aware, or else we would be more than happy to go visit with them as well. And two, I agree with that. A lot of these organizations and events do have revenue and residual revenues off of that. We try to spend what we bring in, and so it is, again, a volunteer-based event, and so we just reach out to sponsors year after year to try to keep those revenues coming in so we can continue to market on a higher level. We've added more and more marketing every year, and so we want to continue to bring more and more people here. So this is our one way of asking to do that. But I do understand where you're coming from on that. But again, it takes the sponsorships to keep an event of this stature going. So.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Do you care if I clarify something?
No, please do.
Since we've got new aldermen and maybe some, as Alderman Rucker said, this ordinance was put in place for some specific reasons as dictated by the board. Because first and foremost, the city cannot donate funds, period. How you do donate funds is if it's tied to your economic growth or economic base growth. So what Alderman Rucker's talking about, the board debated on this because, you know, city cannot go donate funds, but tying it to economic development. And that's why events are scrutinized at the board level. It's not an operational procedure that I have the authority to do, but I ensure there's a budget. I ensure there's a public purpose, that it is open to the public. It's providing visitors, providing whether first time, second time, that's at the discretion of the board. But that's how our structure has worked, and it's really because of a legality purpose too. You know, donating to nonprofit or even private businesses, that's picking winners and losers. But if it grows our economic base, that was the intent behind the ordinance. Again, whether first time, second time, repeat, that's at the discretion of the board. But I kind of wanted to explain that a little bit, and you'd mentioned
Thank you.
structures of other cities. We don't know what their economic
Right.
development, growth, or base programs are, and this
Right.
is just one piece of ours.
All right, Alderman Ross.
Well, I would just say that Kevin, I wasn't here when this thing was put together, okay? Seed money, that's great, and if we can continue to find additional events to use this for, great, but over a course of time, honestly, the calendar at the Lake of the Ozarks, when the weather's halfway decent, is pretty full down here anymore. So I don't know that there's a whole lot of many opportunities for seed money. Now, we can have that conversation at budget time as to whether or not we should fund any of those kinds of things. But I will just say that based on the economic ways of things down here in our sales tax, this is a great event.
It is. a great event.
And I think that, you know, pushing some money aside to help ensure that those events drive economic activity here is still a good investment. I'll just leave it at that.
Yes, and through the program that you guys partner with through LORDAC, I'm able to get studies and data of how many people, and I tell them which point of interest I'm interested in. And I always pick Harley-Davidson because of their vendor village, and I can tell you that we had over 30,000 people, and that isn't even, I don't think 100% accurate, but that's just one location of Osage Beach. So you guys are quite larger than that. If you drive to any of the complexes, it's full of bikes and, you know, the restaurants. I mean, it's just, and most of our passport program, we have quite a few just within your guys' community that support the event. And then they get, everybody that does the passport program, which is around 1,000 people right now, they have to go to every single establishment. So, you know, anybody within your community that's on that program is getting at least 1,000 visitors, which typically spend money, so.
Alderman Rose.
I have been in support of this from the get-go, and it has grown, as you said, every year. And I think it's wonderful for our businesses to be able to reap the harvest. And more than that is a lot of exposure that these people are coming in and maybe have never been at the lake, but they'll come back on vacation because they've enjoyed it. I would like to move that we do the $3,000 towards the Bike Fest.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a first, Alderman Rose. We have a second, Alderman Ross. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. First reading passes. Thank you, Heather. All right, next moving on to Bill 23-49, an ordinance to the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign an amendment contract under Ordinance 23.29 for on-call engineer services with Miller Companies. This is the first and second reading. City Attorney Cole Bradbury.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. I'm carrying this one for Mike Welty, who's on vacation this week. This was one of the engineering contracts that we did with Miller Companies. Mike and I both approved it. Mike sent it to Miller Companies for approval and realized that he had overstated the amount of insurance they needed, so this is an amendment correcting that to an appropriate amount of insurance for this particular agreement. Other than that, this is the contract that you've previously approved.
All right. Comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Hoffman. Do I have a second? Alderman Rucker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading carries. Same bill, 23-49, an ordinance to the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign an amendment contract under Ordinance 23-29 for on-call engineering services with Miller Companies. This is the second reading. Any other comments or questions?
Just a comment. I
Yes.
realize that Alderman Schuman she's not here. Do we need to specifically make that known since this would have been a conflict of hers?
She would normally step out, but she's not here.
But she's absent.
I just want to make sure that there wasn't anything we had to do even though she was not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Minutes will reflect she was
That's
absent.
fine. That's fine.
All right. Do you have a motion to approve second reading?
So move.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman. Roll call, please.
Alderman Osteen? Alderman Morose?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Rucker?
Yes.
Alderman Hoffman?
Yes.
All right. Second reading passes. Next, we also have a first and second reading, Bill 23-50, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign work order number 1 with Bartlett and West, Inc. for on-call engineering services for an amount not to exceed $289,083. Gina Wood, City Administrator.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. Again, I think Mike stacked the agenda, knowing he was going on vacation, but no, some of these are very timely. As you recall, Bartlett and West was awarded an engineering contract, one of those master contracts that we had spoke about. We're ready for the first task order, which is specifically tied to the Oasis Lakeport. Hence why the first and second reading, because that project's going to be progressing and we want to get them on board. Basically, we don't feel at this time that a budget amendment will likely be needed. This will be carried, possibly carried over. We do have funds in engineering that we've already approved, but at such time that we feel that it is, we will come back. If you have any further technical questions, I will be happy to pass them on to Mike Welty, for second reading, but I can try to assist if you have any specifics.
All right. Comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading? Alderman Ross, do I have a second? Alderman Rose, all those in favor?
Aye.
First reading passes. Second reading, Bill 23-50, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign work order number 1 with Bartlett and West Incorporated for on-call engineering services for an amount not to exceed $289,083. Did anybody come up with any quick questions they had for second reading?
I know I said that, and then I was like, oh yeah, it's first and second reading.
Yeah,
Same thing. Well, I guess you can pass it on or table the second reading.
Do we have a motion to approve second reading?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Hoffman, do I have a second? Alderman Rucker, roll call, please.
Alderman Hoffman.
Yes.
Alderman Rucker.
Yes.
Alderman Ross.
Yes.
Alderman Morose.
Yes.
Alderman Osteen. Alderman Schuman.
All right, second reading passes. Next, Bill 23-51, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement with Elks Lodge number 2517 for the construction and maintenance of a new Veterans Memorial to be built in the roundabout in front of City Hall. This is the first reading. Gina, do you want to take this one too?
I absolutely will.
Okay.
Mayors and members of the board, as you recall, this has been a project Mike has been diligently working on, and as the gentleman from the Elks Lodge said, staff, and not just Mike, but I know Cole's been involved, and Ron and Dave Van Leer, trying to get this project kind of outlined on how it will work, what are the costs, what are the responsibilities to the two parties. At budget time, as Mike indicated, it was suggested that although the budget amount was approved of just shy of $143,000 for the construction piece, drill down, see if there was opportunities to make it more affordable, I guess, or less expensive. I believe that both parties have worked. I'm sure there's people who are in the Elks Lodge that can answer on their behalf. I know Mike has outlined what the goals of the responsibility for the Elks Lodge, which are several donations, flags and the statutes. They are doing the pavers. They've kind of lined out more specifics on that, as was presented early on when there was other estimates. There are some additional community donations that have been finalized, and more may to come for that. At this point, this is really that agreement between the Elks Lodge and the city. We do not want to bid this out for the construction piece without an agreement. Obviously, whatever bidding would proceed, that's another layer to the board to actually approve. So what this request is, even though it might not hit the numbers that was hoped for back in budget time, without this agreement, we can't bid. So basically what Mike is asking for is get the agreement signed. If it's comfortable with the board, the next piece was bidding our portion of responsibility out. Should those bids, because as you all know, right now, we are still struggling with supply chain and inflationary cost. And we have a lot of projects right now that we are doing engineer estimates and they come in over. So should that happen, the bids will be treated as that, and possibly you might not move forward or push on. So this is only a first reading. So if there's things that you would like me to direct Mike or staff to iron out further, just looking for direction, but this does get the agreement solidified so the next steps can happen.
All right, questions from the board? Alderman Hoffman.
I just think the most important thing here is the fact that we don't need to get hung up on the money, because that's not what is in this agreement. The agreement is how we will do it. Once we find out what that money portion is, then from there, we'll have to possibly make other decisions.
It's contingent on board's approval of the bids we receive.
Alderman Hoffman.
I was just wondering if is there a design piece yet, or is?
Well, right now, yes, they have been working on some design. I don't think that there's pictures. We're not at that.
Site plan.
Yeah, there's a.
Somewhat.
Okay, so there is somewhat. I knew they'd worked on that because those steps kind of have to happen to get an engineer's estimate on what the value of our responsibility is. So what this agreement does is we've really worked out, okay, city, this is what we're going to do. Elks, this is what you're going to do so we can build this. You know, it will be very nice. You know, in fact, I don't think our city anywhere has any other memorial. So, you know, both parties have worked together to outline what those responsibilities are based on that plan, kind of the vision, and based on that estimate. Now, the next step, again, this agreement is not agreeing the city can spend any dollars. This is saying, okay, we are going to partner with the veterans under these circumstances of you're going to do this and we're going to do this and hope to get to building X. And then once bids and stuff come in, those contracts and those contractors and actually agreeing to write checks will come next or later.
I was just kind of wondering if there was a set design, or if this was something that could be opened up to the public, something that could be turned into a contest with college students or something like that. I'm just wondering how far down this design already is.
They've already purchased their statutes. We already know we want flags, so it's already been designed between the two.
Yeah. Well, speaking as a veteran, I think this is super awesome. So thank you guys for your hard work on it. And I, of course, am going to support this.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve
Alderman
first reading.
Hoffman. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Roast. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. First reading passes. Thank you very much. Next, we have Bill 23-52, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to sign a change order for the Amy Lane and Case Road Improvement Project. Again, first and second reading. City Administrator Gina Woods.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. Finally getting closer to finish the Amy Lane. As you recall, Amy Lane and Case were kind of combined in projects. The Case Road piece is done. Amy Lane, we are asking for a contract amendment that increases just shy of $9,000 to $8,955 due to some adjustments in the field. This is a project that has been committed by the Osage Beach Special Road District to subsidize 100%. We are in negotiations or questioning them at their next meeting to ask if they would also still commit to 100% with this increase that is still to be determined. So worst case scenario, they don't increase their subsidy or funding of the project, then that will be the city's out of pocket, because at this point, none of the construction is scheduled to be. However, that will not even, if worst case scenario that happens, that will not throw us over budget, because we have had a couple projects. Ledges is not going to happen this year, and a few other savings and some other ones. So I do, on behalf of Mike, recommend approval of the contract amendment. And like I said, we'll update you post the next Osage Beach Special Road District meeting on the grant or the subsidy funding.
All right, thank you. The board have comments or questions?
I have a question to direct this to my fellow alderman, Alderman Ross. Is this part of the project of the road survey that we did with?
Actually, these are roads that were already part of the original assessment, and some of these have been completed, and so now we're reprioritizing what's left. What we did that day was reprioritizing what was left.
Was this one of them?
The originals, yeah. Yeah. Amy Lane was like, I think, second highest on the list when we started.
I was just
Post
trying to
Office Road was first.
Right.
As I best recall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? See none, do I have a motion to approve first reading?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, do I have a second? Alderman Rucker, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, first reading passes. Same bill, 23-52, an ordinance of the City of Osage Beach, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to sign a change order for the Amy Lane and Case Road Improvement Project. Second reading. Comments or questions, or do I have a motion to approve second reading?
So moved.
Alderman Rose. Second?
Second.
Alderman Hoffman. We have a first and second. Roll call, please.
Alderman Rucker?
Yes.
Alderman Ross?
Yes.
Alderman Rose?
Yes.
Alderman Osteen? Alderman Schuman? Alderman Hoffman?
Yes.
All right, second reading passes. We already took care of Bill 23-54. All right, so next we're going to move on to some appointments. First one is a motion to appoint a member of the Board of Aldermen to the Planning Commission, and per city code, a member of the board is selected by the board. So we currently have Alderman Osteen on the board. So with that being said, his term does expire. So, do we have a motion to appoint a board member?
I would like to make a motion to reappoint Alderman Osteen to the Planning and Zoning Commission.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Alderman Ross. All those in favor?
Well,
I'm sorry?
I would like clarification on the motion, please.
Okay.
I would like for the motion to include the term to expire in 2024. The one-year term.
1 year?
I agree with that.
Would you like to put a date on that? A specific date?
As per the ordinance.
As per the ordinance, it
there is some
says June
specifics.
1.
Okay, very good. All right.
Ordinance needs to be changed because for the elected official that could not be reelected in April, that could mean we could go a month and a half, but I'm sure somebody will look at redoing that ordinance and make it correct.
All right, so we have a motion on the
Sure
floor
somebody will.
for Alderman Osteen with the amendment of June 1st, 2024, correct?
Yes.
All right, do we have a second?
You already have a second.
We do, Alderman Ross?
Friendly amendment.
All right, friendly.
amendment.
Right, we need a second for the amendment, right?
All right, we have a first, Alderman Hoffman, we have a second, Alderman Ross, with the amendment of June 1, 2024 as the expiration date. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Congratulations, Bob. All right. Another member of that commission is appointed by the mayor, and so the next appointment you have is going to be an appointment, reappointment of Susan Ebling by myself to the Planning Commission. She has agreed to serve another term, and with her term expiring June 1st, 2027. Do I have a motion to approve my appointment?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Hoffman, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Morose, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, congratulations, Susan. Next, we have a motion to approve on the Liquor Control Board. And this would be for Alderman Hoffman with expiration date of June 1st, 2024. This is a new appointment. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Rucker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Rose, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have a motion to approve by the mayor to the TIF Commission. This would be, first would be Alderman Richard Ross with an expiration of June 1st, 2024, which is a new appointment. And we also have an appointment with Tim Gardner, expiration June 1st, 2025. He was an appointment last year by myself and approved by the board. And then Alderman Rucker, we did the terms, making alternating time. So he, even though he's only served less than a year, he is the new one with the expiration currently would be June 1st, 2025. If that makes any sense. If it doesn't, let me know. If not, do I have a motion to approve those appointments?
Motion to approve.
Alderman Rucker, do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Rose. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we have a motion, appointments by myself to the Board of Appeals. These are both current members with expiring terms. Both would be Kurt Flickering with the expiration of June 1st, 2028 would be the new term expiration. And Matt Stevens, also June 1st, June 1st, 2028. Do I have a motion to approve?
You don't want Westing,
I'm sorry?
West Housing? Skip one. You missed the top one.
Oh, sorry about that. Anthony Westhausen, expiration again, June 1st, 2028. Now, Mr. Rucker, would you like, I'm sorry.
I want to make a correction.
Okay.
Or an addition, or a suggested change. First of all, I would like to ask if the mayor would consider, as far as Anthony Westonhuizen? Westhuizen. I believe that should be Andy Westhuizen II.
Okay, that was not on anything given to me?
Well, and the reason I bring that up is because it was my understanding, first of all, that term was due in 2022.
Correct.
And that position was not refilled because we thought he passed away. And my research was his father passed away. And this is the second, this is his son. Anthony the second.
Yes,
Now,
Tony.
that's what, and unfortunately, I haven't talked to him. Does anybody knows him or knows that that
I
is?
do know the West Housing family,
is that a
and the
true-
father has passed away.
Yes.
Okay.
He's the developer of the old villas at
So I
Green
just
Bliss.
wanted to clarify.
Building official will
because
be familiar.
we wanted to make sure
Yeah.
of that.
All right.
Does it go by the second?
And then his term should actually expire in 2027 because he should have been reappointed in 2022
That's
for a
correct.
5-year term. So I would like to ask if we could change that to 2027.
So Anthony Westhousing II, expiration June 1st, 2027. And the other two, June 1st, 2028. With those changes, do I have a motion to approve?
I would so make that motion.
Alderman Rucker, do I have a second?
I will second.
Alderman Hoffman. Motion carries, all right. Next, we have motion to approve appointments by the mayor to the Citizen Advisory Committee. All right, first we have Dr. Paula Brown, Ward 2, expires June 1st, 2026, would be the current member term expiration. Corey Booth, Ward 3, expires June 1st, 2026. And Janice Tyler, at large, June 1st, 2026. Any changes to that, Mr. Rucker?
We do have an opening that I show still needs to be filled.
We do have a vacancy, but I
in
chose
Ward
not to
1.
appoint. I figured we visited about this, and then we believe we have plenty. And at 9 to 15 members is the...
No, I disagree with that.
Okay.
I'll have that discussion with you privately then,
Okay.
because we need to have equal representation from wards, and my ward will not be equally represented.
Okay, well, we can go ahead and appoint these three.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, and then we can talk about the new appointment. That'll be fine. Do I have a motion to approve these three?
Motion approved.
Alderman Ross, second Alderman Rose. Very good. Yeah, let's visit. All right, last motion to appoint nomination by mayor to the Joint Sewer Board. And these are both current members. We have Gina Woods with a new expiration June 1st, 2026. And we have Kevin Alderman Rucker, new expiration June 1st, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve?
Clarification on the blue sheet. Second page shows that is misstating the ordinance, because the ordinance allows for an alderman to serve a 1-year term and the city staff member to serve a 3-year term. The blue sheet says 2-year.
Oh, I stand corrected. Thank you.
Okay.
You almost made it all the way through.
All right, do I have a motion to approve with the correction?
So
Alderman
was my
Ross,
expiration
do I have a
date
second? Alderman
Second.
Hoffman? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good. All right, moving on to
That's correct.
staff update and communications. All right, Gina Woods, City Administrator.
Yes, Mayor, members of the board. I'm not going to go through all of Mike's items. I did get an email from Parks and Rec. Unfortunately, he's out tonight, but there was a few things that he did want the board to be aware of. and I believe he stated this last year, Parks Master Plan, he's still working on proposed timeline, working with Cochrane, vendors, cost estimates, design ideas. Again, expects that at a meeting in July for an update. Couple big projects that's been going on we're kind of excited are getting done. The drainage improvement project on Hatchery Road, which is very, very much needed after years, will start in mid-June. Paving will be late June or early July. The PA system's going up. The trenching the water line for the park maintenance shape will be done in a couple weeks. Conservation, we got those contracts signed. The biologist with the conservation department's been out, so hopefully that pond will be treated and cleaned up. If you've been out there, all the water's turning over on all the ponds, so that'll be they'll get out there and get that. We have a fishing derby scheduled in August, so that'll be good timing for that. He did meet with the local Frisbee Golf Club. This will excite a couple of you because this has been a project on and off that we've been trying to figure out where a potential piece we could put that. And of course, in 2013, we had the big flood and a lot of things have postponed that. So he will be bringing more information, contractor, what such, to the Board of Aldermen. So more to come on that. As far as my update, next Tuesday, June 6th, is our special meeting at 6 p.m. with staff. Myself and 12 other department managers have been given instructions to give a brief overview of their department because we want to get through this in 2 hours, but yet give you guys the information that you will carry on to your meeting on the 27th. I will have a packet. A few of the departments have done a bullet point type summary. I'll have a packet and agenda out for the next Tuesday's meeting out tomorrow. It will not be very large. If it's okay with you, I may just send that electronic. If you want a hard copy, let me know, or I guess maybe I should ask her, do you want it the same way as all the other meetings? It'll be like 4 or 5 pages, very short, not big PowerPoints. I will tell you, staff's been very busy, so this year you're seeing a little less paperwork, but not less content. I know they've been working on details, so if it's okay if the packet's only a few pages, if we just stick to electronic, if you want a hard copy, I can bring it that night. Since it's not I don't expect it to be a lot to dive into as far as paperwork. Not a lot to read, I guess.
Since it's only a few pages,
yes, it's like,
I'll take it electronically, but other than that.
And I'll bring a few copies, so if you want to make notes.
I'll print my own.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I'll bring a few copies.
I probably will too.
Okay, I'll print and bring copies, but not a lot to read, unlike our 100-page packet tonight. 2 weeks after that, on June 27th, which is also Tuesday, we have scheduled our all-day strategic session with the mayor and the board. The only staff members that will be involved in that is myself, which I will monitor for you, I guess, or facilitate for you. City clerk will be there for records. Attorney will be there for legal stuff. And I believe Mike Welty usually joins us as well. I have scheduled that to be held at Margaritaville. 9 a.m. to 4:30. I will get an agenda and packet of information out the week before that meeting as well. But I have secured a room. Unfortunately, our plan was to kind of stay in Osage Beach. That kind of fell through with other stuff, so we'll be down at Margarita. Snacks and lunch will be provided, so more to come on that. Other than that, I don't have many other updates on my update list. I would ask that the Veterans Memorial be taken off, but I'm not sure what Alderman put that on, but that is all I have.
All right, thank you very much. City clerk.
I don't have anything tonight. I think we have enough stuff going on, but thank you.
City treasurer, Carrie Bell.
Yours is up. Mayor and Board of Aldermen, I'm in the cities in the home stretch of the 2022 audit. It's kind of on my lap. If I can get all the parts back to them tomorrow, you will have your presentation at the next board meeting on the 15th. So that is, and I want to tell that's 2 weeks earlier than or 2 meetings earlier than last year. Mm-hmm. So I think they got your message.
I hope they did.
And I think that's all I have this evening.
All right, thank you very much. City Attorney Cole Bradbury.
Well, you saw everything I've been doing. It was all over the agenda. Other than that, I will be on vacation next meeting, so I will be thinking about all of you from the pool. And really, the other thing I kind of wanted to update on, because we don't talk about it very much, is it is now silly season, so prosecuting is way, way up. Police department's sent me quite a few doozies. We had a young man who was caught pulling away from one of our officers doing 111 on a motorcycle, and a couple other triple digits. And Ron in the building department and I have been improving compliance, and we'll just leave it at that.
All right, that's it.
That's it.
All right. Chief Davis?
No, not yet. Our newest police officer will be graduating the academy this coming Thursday at 6 p.m. up in Warrensburg, and he'll be on the road the following Monday, starting his training. We have an offer letter out for another recruit position that's currently in the academy. Holiday weekend was busy, like Cole said, but nothing major. Just our typical summer holiday weekend shenanigans. And Sergeant Schwinn and Corporal Chapman had finished up active shooter training with School of the Osage staff today. So,
all right.
How far does that leave us down, officers?
2 road officers and 1 SRO.
And the one SRO is tied directly to a contract with the school, too.
Alderman Ross, did you have something?
I was going to ask that question, I think, but I didn't quite hear the answer.
gotcha.
We're down.
We'll be down 2 road officers and then the new position you guys authorized with the School of the Osage.
And that's after the young man shows up Monday?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we've got one in the academy, so.
Right, but that he's not out of the academy
But she,
yet.
yeah, she
Right.
won't be out until September.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Building official, Ron White.
I have nothing on the list, but I will just let you guys know that we've got the contracts signed for the City Hall improvements, and right now we anticipate those improvements to begin in July.
Very good.
Where are we at with the janitorials? Are you guys still having to pick up the slack on that, or have we gotten any new bids from anybody?
Mike Welty is handling the bids on the janitorial contract. I believe he has been in receipt of one, and that should be coming to you guys on
The next board
on the next
Hey,
board meeting.
If it's
so-
not the next, it's.
It'll
be the next meeting.
Good.
But yeah, we're still wearing the maid outfits.
I didn't need that
Figuratively.
visual, but-
All right. All right, Public Works, Kevin Crooks.
Thank you, Mayor and the board. About a year and a half ago, Public Works GIS technician Thomas Ellinger laid out a pretty ambitious plan about how he was gonna attack basically inventorying all the infrastructure out in the city that has not been inventoried. And I'll just shoot you some rough numbers here, give you an idea of his progress. Since 2022, these assets, additional assets have been inventoried. 828 water or sewer valves, 447 street signs, 164 gravity manholes, 147 street signs, 456 stormwater inlets, 781 meters, 91 hydrants, and 228 street addresses. And so that's just a little small slice, because within a single asset, you'll have what's called attributes, like say, if it's a water valve, what kind of water valve is it? What size is it? Is it an air release valve? Is it a resilient wedge valve? Is it a, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of data there that's been compiled, and we have a long way to go. And by the way, the cartograph, the OpenGov program that was approved here today works hand in hand with those GIS assets. Those are all going to be managed within the OpenGov CMMS program that was approved today. Moving on to the rest of Public Works, there's still 6 openings in the sewer department. However, 2 new hires are inbound to start filling those positions, as well as some other recent interviews. So starting to fill the gaps and get back where we need to be. That's all I have.
Very good. All right. Michael Reyes, Human Resource.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. The only update I have tonight is that the progress on the logger study. It is currently under actuarial review. They had requested some additional information a couple of weeks back. And so we should be expecting to hear from them, I would say, within the next few weeks.
Very good. All right. Human Resource, Mitchell Moon.
Economic development.
Oh,
I don't want his problems.
wow. Economic development. Sorry.
In the economic development world,
Sewer foreman.
Yes.
God no. I am very pleased to announce Osage Beach will be hosting Chuck Gatzenberger. He's with the Missouri Department of Economic Development. This gentleman just happens to live right down the road in Camdenton, and he stopped in our office just on a whim one Friday. We had a great conversation, and he's going to be presenting a program that places retiring service members in our military with employers. That way, when they retire from the military on day one, they are able to find an employer and have a job and ready to enter our workforce. His presentation is tailored to municipalities. So today I've sent out emails to a bunch of different lake area municipalities and as well as private employers as well. Some of success stories that have come from this program that your state offers. The city of Jefferson City has hired 2 police officers from this program in the last year. The city of Wentzville is heavily taking advantage of this program and hiring public work employees. And if you're familiar with the big company Equipment Share in Columbia, they have about 1,000 employees in total. About 150 of them have come from this program. What this program is, I'll let Chuck announce it on July 11th when he's here at 9 a.m. right in this very room. But the meat of it is, if you're a service member in your last 6 months of your service to this nation, we basically put you in a pool and employers get to list what skills they need, what jobs they're looking for, and those service members apply and basically act as an intern for their last 6 months. And then the day one when they retire from the military, they have a job waiting for them. And it's of no cost to the employer. So it's really a good program every which way you look at it. And I'm just really glad to bring this down here to Osage Beach. So that's kind of what's been going on in our office recently, along with everything else. And just want to say I won't be here on the June 15th meeting either. I will be on the beach, so you can call, but I'm not answering the phone call.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. The state recently passed tax incentives for the film industry. I don't know if they're parallel to how Georgia did theirs, but I know that they have passed some tax incentives. And I have caught wind that there are some independent films coming this direction. I was just wondering if this falls under your umbrella a little bit, and if you've looked into it at all? Or?
It would, and I've kept up very closely. I keep in close contact with our lawmakers in Jefferson City, as well as members in the executive branch up there as well. I like the bill that was passed. I don't think it went far enough, personally.
I agree.
However, I do think it is a step in the right direction, and there's room for improvement, but I think it will definitely help Missouri attract films being filmed.
So it didn't
here.
land at 30%, it landed somewhere lower than that, I assume? The tax incentive is lower than that, I assume?
I can't quote you the number off the top of my head.
I was just
sitting
wondering
here.
if you'd looked into it.
Yeah, I've looked into it, and I do think it's a step in the right direction. Did it go far enough? In my opinion, no.
Okay.
We have to be competitive, and at the moment, Missouri isn't being competitive.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. City Planner, Carrie Patterson.
Yes, Mayor, if it's okay with you, I'm going to give my first 30 seconds back to Carrie Bell because there's one other thing she wanted to tell you all before she let you go. And then I'll come back and bore you.
Mayor and Board of Aldermen, this is unusual for me to want to get up here, but because Chief Davis did not mention it, I would like you to know that he beat a deadline this week for the Medicaid audit that was for the city, pre-COVID, put on hold, thought it was going to go away, and actually the audit, it was half operational, half financial. So he said he would take the lead on it, and if we did not get this done, it could affect our Medicaid revenue stream. So he did a great job, he got it done on time, and I just want to make sure you knew that.
Whatever, volunteer again.
And I won't volunteer for it next time.
Yeah, I apologize. I had no
Ross,
idea she was
I
going
had
to
it.
compliment Todd.
Can I just,
so.
question for clarity, what is our Medicare revenue stream to the city or to citizens of the city?
Medicaid is
Or
that the
Medicaid, I'm sorry.
actual? This is through our ambulance service.
Oh, okay, now I'm catching
Yes.
on. It's about reimbursements and so forth.
Yes.
Okay, I got it, now I get it, thank you.
That's good.
All right, very good.
Okay, so all I have is week after next is planning commission meeting. The amusement park portion of the Oasis will be on that meeting. So whether you show up or watch us online, I suggest take a look at it. I wouldn't expect a whole heck of a lot, but you know, there's a lot of, goes a little bit further. Alderman Morose and I had a little bit of a conversation this week about the differences between the financing and the land use and the permitting and how they're two very separate entities that we keep separate for purpose. And so we will be going through that process starting not next Tuesday, obviously that's our meeting, but the next one. So,
2 weeks.
man, I guess I need to do my staff reports a day early, don't I? All right. And then also looking forward to getting the traffic studies from the folks from Oasis. It does not shock me at all to hear that we have good capacity in the area. It's kind of one of those things that every time somebody builds anything, you know, people think a 6-lane highway should go in front of it. But, you know, we do have to keep in mind that, you know, Osage Beach Parkway was once Highway 54 and carried all of the traffic for at least half of the city and most of the, you know, the west side of the lake for a long time. So it has a lot of capacity, and we're going to put some cars on that baby. I can tell you that right now, and I think that'll be great for our community. Other than that, had a great holiday this past weekend, and I'll give back to the mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Alderman Rucker.
Yes, Mayor. 2 items. First of all, I would like to request that bill number 23-27 be placed on the agenda at our next meeting. That is janitorial bill that had a first reading. I would like for it to be on the agenda so we can officially take the second reading and not pass it.
Done.
And secondly, the marijuana tax ordinance, would we be by chance having that on the agenda sometime in July?
No, it's actually will be on next meeting.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Drafted, just wasn't done in time for this one.
That's fine.
It's on my desk. I apologize.
All right, Alderman Hoffman.
First, I'd like to thank the police force for handling our first big weekend of the year so well. Not just from the people in this room. I saw a lot of posts on social media giving you guys a lot of credit. So just want to make sure that you're getting your due credit on that. Thanks a lot. I'd like to thank the staff. There's been a lot going on in Osage Beach, and it seems like you guys have got answers to questions, and I know that I greatly appreciate that. So really, you know, we're lucky to have the staff that we have. I've learned that pretty quick. And lastly, the Veterans Memorial, you know, just speaking as a veteran, and my brother's military, I just took my mom up with my brother to Washington, D.C., where he was doing some service. And, you know, just seeing people go to the memorials and seeing other veterans there, it's so impactful. And I've always thought it was a bit odd that, as patriotic as I know this community is, that there's nothing in Osage Beach. So I'm really glad that we're making a movement to get this done, and I think it really speaks to the heart and soul of this city. And that's all I have.
All right,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Rose.
I have nothing. I think Alderman Hoffman has said it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Ross.
I have one quick thing. I'm going to recognize Tara for putting together a 582-page deck. I'm sure that was fun.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you.
The big oak tree.
And she did it a good 12 hours ahead of time because
Oh,
she was on
absolutely.
vacation.
That was nice. Thank you
so-
very much.
Yeah.
That was nice.
And
How quick we could have all of them.
Well, I've been asking for that for a while.
And
Pipe down.
Hush Blackwell also put a pause on it about 100 pages in, and there was
I had scissors to my neck about that time.
All right. I only have a couple things. First and foremost, I too wanted to thank the staff and the board. The Oasis project, there was a lot of questions asked. And I kept seeing, sitting in my office, different aldermen coming in and asking hard questions and trying to get things answered. And I'm mainly saying this, thank you to you folks, but also to the people at home that if they throw out on social media that we just approve everything just to get things going. I mean, there's been tough questions, there's been confrontations, friendly confrontations, but a lot of times we sit up here and we may think, well, the meetings are long, but these are good questions. And so thank you for asking them. And sometimes, a lot of times I know when I came on board, I ask a lot of questions, and that's how you learn. So I want to truly thank you, the staff and the board. We did a good thing here tonight. So I look forward to good things. The other one is, and since he won't be here at the next meeting, I want to congratulate Mitchell Moon's getting married Saturday. Kim and I will be there. We look forward to it. So I'll tell you in person, but I wanted everybody to maybe tell him congratulations out the door. So I asked him today if he was nervous. He said, not really, I'm just getting ready to get it over with. So that's a good thing. So congratulations. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Alderman Ross. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Rose. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Richard, I need you to sign something. and
You're
I
getting
need
a
you to
wheel
sign
of
something.
cheese for a present. Probably a really good one.
Here, eat a wheel of cheese.
Around, I'll give you a call. Give me a call or something when you get time.
I'm looking